Hare Krishna. Welcome to the first class of our Canto 3 study. All
Woohoo!
right, exciting. It's a longer canto. This is a little more than twice as long as the second canto. It's one of the longer cantos. This, Canto 4, and of course Canto 10 is the longest. So it's going to be in I think, two parts. But we'll get through about half of this canto and a lot of really amazing content starting today. The canto is called The Status Quo, and we'll see why.
Ooh, the status quo.
Yeah.
No.
Not the material status quo. So we'll start with some kirtan.
Will you give us some context of the first two cantos before we dive into this one? Yeah. Okay. Well, Haribol, sweet souls, wonderful to be back with you and to be in this space. So let's start with a clearing breath, just to settle, to ground, to arrive. Open your mouth, release your jaw. Ha. Take a deep breath in through your nose, sip it in, fill up. Open mouth, exhale, let it go. And as always, we'll begin with our opening prayers, this invocation and honoring of all of our teachers, the acharyas who have walked this path of yoga before us, gifting us the torchlight of knowledge, removing the darkness of ignorance. Deep breath in. Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Opening our hearts and our minds to this mood of gratitude, of mercy, of receptivity, receiving this transcendental sound vibration of the holy name. Calling out for service, reawakening, remembrance, truth, love. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna,
Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Santubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Okay, good crew today. Starting the Canto 3. So, good to give a little context. Most of us have been here for the first two cantos, but even those who have, it's been a couple weeks. So, the first two cantos touch on a number of topics, but essentially the overarching story is that there is a king, Maharaj Parikshit, who is the grandson of the Pandavas, grandson of Arjuna, from Bhagavad Gita, and he is a great devotee. He's always been a great devotee. He was actually saved when he was in his mother's womb by Krishna. That pastime is recounted in the first canto. Although he's a great devotee and a king, under the force of Krishna's Yoga Maya energy, there's a pastime that involves him becoming temporarily disgruntled when he was out in the forest and he was thirsty and he came upon the hermitage of a great sage, Shamika Rishi. And he tried to get Shamika's attention, but Shamika was in trance. But Parikshit became annoyed and thought that he was being ignored. So he kind of sarcastically draped his shoulders with a dead snake and just walked away. Then he walked away and he thought to himself, why did I do that? That was very petty of me. If there's some reaction to this, better that it comes quickly. Better that it comes soon. He realized that this is unbecoming. And Shamika was a Brahmana. He had Brahminical qualifications, as did his son. And so his son, who was just a boy, said, out of pride, seeing his father apparently disrespected, although his father took no offense, he cursed Parikshit to die in 7 days. In 7 days, you'll be killed by forget the Sanskrit word, but a snake bird will come and bite you and kill you. And when Maharaj Parikshit heard about this, he said, okay, I accept it. He could have counteracted it, but he thought, this is actually Krishna's arrangement. After such a, involved, royal lifetime, I've had to be in this world and do all these things. I was clearly getting attached. This is his way of detaching me. Very humble soul. And he just accepted it, decided to get his affairs in order, take care of his family, take care of the kingdom. Then he sat down on the banks of the sacred Ganga, actually might be the Saraswati, and he decided to fast and wait for a teacher to appear. And it was such a noteworthy occasion that great souls came, Narada Muni came, great demigods came, and eventually Shukadeva Goswami came, the son of Vyasadeva, and he was considered by all present as the most learned speaker to actually instruct Maharaj Parikshit. Parikshit asked, at the end of the first canto, he approached Shukadeva Goswami and said, I want to be your student. I've accepted this. I have 7 days to live. I have nothing else to do, but what are the most important things for me to do with my time? What is the most important duty for anybody? And specifically for one who is about to face death. He asked a number of other questions, and the second canto begins with Shukadeva answering his question effectively, that the most important thing is to remember at the end of your life, your source, to remember Krishna, remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He elaborates on that by talking about the processes of yoga for several chapters, about the Lord in the heart, and meditation, Ashtanga yoga, and then seeing the Lord externally in the universe as the beginnings of devotional practice, that's seeing that there's a person behind this, and appreciating the universe in that way. And then he talked more about devotional service directly, its glories, its power, how it can be practiced by anybody, the middle kind of chapters 3 and 4. And then there was a discussion of some conversation that Brahma had with his disciple Narada to answer some of Parikshit's questions. And there was a conversation that included discussing about the creation of the material world in some steps, and some of a partial list of incarnations. And what else did you all hear from the first or second cantos that you want to kind of pipe in with? especially maybe Canto 2, that was more recent. Yes,
That anybody is eligible. You don't have to be born into
right,
a caste or any sort of class to be able to be Krishna conscious.
absolutely. That's going to come up again right in the beginning of the third canto, actually, with the personage of Vidura. And there's a particular verse that I quoted about that Prabhupada has quoted many times in commentaries, purports, Kidatu Hunandra, etc., that explicitly says what you just said, that bhakti is for everyone. Yeah.
It's for everyone. It's also all purifying, and whether you think that you're unpure or unqualified or not, that you're still suitable to practice. And the way that we approach Krishna is through the practice of bhakti yoga.
Yeah. It's all practical.
And there's like examples of that given throughout that canto.
And there's going to be more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a major theme in Bhagavatam, is the practical examples of the devotees in every kind of situation. So many different kinds of situations. So, any other comments or reflections?
We also start the process of learning about how focusing on material existence is going to be a downfall for us, that we have to be focusing on the spiritual and dedication to Krishna. So, moving away from material connection.
Right. The material world is presented very clearly in the second canto, and will be represented again, Canto 3, as one of Krishna's energies. In fact, the material existence is a combination of two Krishna's energies fundamentally, the external energy and the marginal energy. That is matter and consciousness. As Bhagavad Gita points out, they're both energies of the Lord, but they're in different categories. One is conscious, one is not, right? So we are conscious living entities. That's who we are. And in our material situation, we live in a material body composed of the second thing. There's like things that have beginnings and ends. Your body is born, it dies, there's a bunch of stuff that happens in between, it's always changing. But the material world itself is not actually a problem, but due to our attachment and our forgetfulness, it becomes the source of further and further problems due to ignorance, right? So the end of the second canto, towards the end, there was what was called the Chatur Shloki, kind of the 4 seed verses of the Bhagavatam that were very philosophical. And at the end, Krishna says to Brahma in those 4 seed verses, he says, one should inquire and aspire for me in all situations, in all places and times. And this is the final instruction he gives him, that one shouldn't just be happy kind of running out the clock in whatever situation they're in. If one can hear that instruction, one has the ears for it, if they're a human being or higher, a demigod, like Brahma, then they can practice bhakti yoga, and that's the whole point. And that's also a section that included a great deal of encouragement about the efficacy of it, and the simplicity and practicality of it. Yeah. Thank you.
I also remember loving and it was brought up at least twice, the don't be a frog in the well analogy that Prabhupada gave in the purports, of like not thinking that the only thing that's possible or what reality is what we've been able to see from where we live, right? Like where the frog doesn't realize there's the ocean outside of the well that he lives in, because it was like there was some really heady stuff that we read about, in like chapter 4 around the whole process of creation and all the planetary systems, and it was kind of like a lot to take in and try to make sense of and process. But we talked about, and you were sharing about how, like, all of that, there's a living person behind all of that. Like, Krishna is behind all of that. And, and to learn about him in all these different aspects, because you said only when one knows Krishna's greatness can they put their faith in him. So I feel that big time through reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, of just like, my mind is blown again and again that, like, this was written down how long ago it was, and that there's such a science to our spiritual path and process that it blows my mind. And the reminder that Krishna is behind all of that, and that's helping me have even more faith, hopefully, and love for him in that process.
Yeah, that's a good opportunity for me to plug a book that talks about that. one of the authors of which just passed away
Yeah.
in old age. A good friend of mine, Madhavendra Puridas, and he was surrounded by devotees. He was in kirtan. It was very beautiful. He was just kind of running out the clock, thinking about Krishna. But the book is called The Big Bang and the Sages, and it talks about the concordance between what science is approaching in terms of its time scale estimate for the universe and different kind of like mass extinction events, and how they actually line up with what the Bhagavatam is saying, and how that's mathematically next to impossible given the time scales we're dealing with for it to happen by chance. But the sages were talking about it thousands of years ago without any modern equipment at all, and only now, the last 100 years, has our modern empirical method approach becoming accurate enough to get close to, it's within like 99.8% or whatever accuracy of what the Bhagavatam has been saying. So, yeah,
What's it called?
The Big Bang and the Sages. Yeah, I mentioned it before. For those who, it's not like, basically I'll say, because I know both of the authors very well, their whole purpose is to convince anybody who needs convincing that the Bhagavatam is worth reading. So if you're reading the Bhagavatam, you don't need to read this book. But if you find this kind of thing cool and interesting, you can. I do. I'm going to order my copy because I was reminded about it since my friend just literally passed away a few days ago, and I was renewing my interest in his research because he was always a genius, and I knew that. Anyway, yeah, good reflections. Thank you. And then at the very end, in the 10th chapter of Canto 2, there was a description of the 10 topics of Bhagavatam that begins with Sarga, the primary creation, continues on to the secondary creation, etc., etc. And as Jiva Goswami, one of our acharyas, points out, all these topics are in every canto, right? So it's not that one canto is only on one topic. You're not going to find it like that. However, after cantos 1 and 2, which are kind of a mix, each one from 3 to 12 focuses more on one topic than the others. So the one that's focused on in Canto 3 is called is Sarga, the primary creation. So Sarga means how the Lord basically creates all the raw elements, and then he leaves it to Brahma, who he empowers to craft the material universe according to the blueprint he gives him, right? He's the forest, and Brahma is the carpenter, effectively. So we're going to get into that kind of material creation thing again in the next few chapters, more like chapters 6 to 9 kind of thing. But to begin with, which is why this canto is called the status quo. Status quo in this context means things as they are, the material status quo, in that it's coming from the source. The first chapter is called Questions by Vidura. So at the very end of the second canto, there was a question about this great devotee, Vidura, who we had heard about in the first canto. And as you might remember, Vidura was the uncle of the Pandavas, right? But he was of a lower caste. He was a Shudra. And so he was disrespected by his very materialistic brother, Dhritarashtra, and Dhritarashtra's family. But he was actually a very, very wise person, very great devotee. And the circumstances of his being treated so disrespectfully were given in the first canto, and what happened was he left, right? We heard about how he left.
Yeah.
And we also heard about how at some point he came back later to give some guidance to Dhritarashtra after the Battle of Kurukshetra, after Bhagavad Gita had happened. Dhritarashtra had lost all of his family, and the Pandavas were the rightful rulers. They're on the throne. But Dhritarashtra was living in the house of his nephews, just kind of living off of charity. And Vidura came and instructed him, you've ignored your spiritual life, your whole life. Why are you still ignoring it? He was very harsh with them for the purpose of waking him up. And wake him up he did. But what he did in between, in that pilgrimage where he left, we hadn't heard about yet. So the question came up of, what did Vidura do? Where did he go? Because he was such a great devotee. There was going to be more discussions about the material universe, this, that, the other, but then the conversation was like, no, I want to hear about him. I want to hear about Vidura. You mentioned him, but his story is incomplete. So that's how this canto begins. Okay? Questions by Vidura, chapter 1. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Verse 1, Shukadeva Goswami said, after renouncing his prosperous home and entering the forest, which means, going on pilgrimage, leaving the material world behind, King Vidura, the great devotee, asked this question of his grace Maitreya Rishi.
And Maitreya is what to him?
Maitreya is his teacher. How they met is gonna come up.
Okay.
It's a little out of order, but we know that he went on pilgrimage, and this is kind of like beginning in the middle of the conversation with a teacher he finds called Maitreya. But how he finds that teacher will be explained, I think, a little bit later.
Okay, thank you.
What else is there to say about the residential house of the Pandavas? Sri Krishna, the Lord of everything, acted as your minister. He used to enter that house as if it were his own, and he did not take any care of Duryodhana's house. Verse 3. So now, Parikshit Maharaj is asking Shukadeva Goswami, where and when did the meeting and discussion take place between Saint Vidura and His Grace Maitreya Muni? Kindly oblige, my Lord, and describe this to us. Verse 4. Saint Vidura was a great and pure devotee of the Lord, and therefore his questions to His Grace Rishi Maitreya must have been very purposeful, on the highest level and approved by learned circles. From the purport, questions and answers among different classes of person have different value. Inquiries by mercantile men in a business exchange cannot be expected to be highly purposeful in spiritual values. Questions and answers by different classes of persons can be guessed by the caliber of the persons concerned. In Bhagavad Gita, the discussion was between Lord Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the Supreme Person, and the Supreme Devotee, respectively. The Lord admitted Arjuna to be his devotee and friend in Bhagavad Gita 4.3, and therefore, any sane person can guess that the discussion was on the topic of the Bhakti Yoga system. Actually, the whole Bhagavad Gita is based on the principle of Bhakti Yoga. There is a difference between karma and karma yoga. Karma is regulated action for the enjoyment of the fruit by the performer, but karma yoga is action performed by the devotee for the satisfaction of the Lord. Karma yoga is based on bhakti, or pleasing the Lord, whereas karma is based on pleasing the senses of the performer themselves. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, one is advised to approach a bona fide spiritual master when one is actually inclined to question from an elevated level of spiritual understanding. A common person who has no interest in spiritual values has no need to approach a spiritual master just as a matter of following fashion. As a student, Maharaj Parikshit was serious about learning the science of God, and Shukadeva Goswami was a bona fide spiritual master in the transcendental science. Both of them knew that the topics discussed by Vidura and Rishi Maitreya were elevated, and thus Maharaj Parikshit was very interested in learning from the bona fide spiritual master. So here we see the importance of the conversations of the devotees is brought up, because Parikshit, although he didn't know, there's so much he doesn't know, still he does know that Vidura is a great devotee. So he's asking, well, what did he talk about? What did he consider important? Right? This is a wise question for the reasons Prabhupada just points out, because not everyone's questions and topics they're not created equally. Verse 5, Sri Sutta Goswami said, the great sage Shukadeva Goswami was highly experienced and was pleased with the king. Thus, being questioned by the king, he said to him, please hear the topics attentively. Shukadeva Goswami said, King Dhritarashtra became blind under the influence of impious desires to nourish his dishonest sons, and thus he set fire to the lacquer house to burn his fatherless nephews, the Pandavas. Right?
They're reading the Mahabharata.
Wow,
listening to the Mahabharata
perfect, right?
again right now.
Yeah,
Has that
this is like a
happened yet?
perfect-
Yes.
Yeah, that was really.
So you know Vidura, you know Dhritarashtra.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dhritarashtra is the kind of the main antagonist, and it's his sons and him who set in motion the necessity for the battle of Kurukshetra, where Bhagavad Gita was spoken. So we're hearing about his character here. Verse 7, the king did not forbid his son Dushasana's abominable action of grabbing the hair of Draupadi, the wife of the godly king Yudhishthira, even though her tears washed the red dust on her breast. 8. Yudhishthira, who was born without any enemy, was unfairly defeated in gambling. But because he had taken the vow of truthfulness, he went off to the forest. When he came back in due course and begged the return of his rightful share of the kingdom, he was refused by Dhritarashtra, who was overwhelmed by illusion. Verse 9. Lord Krishna was sent by Arjuna into the assembly as the spiritual master of the whole world. And although his words were heard by some, like Bhishma, as pure nectar, it was not so for the others who were completely bereft of the last farthing of past pious works. The king, Dhritarashtra or Duryodhana, that's his son, did not take the words of Lord Krishna very seriously. It's a summary of the backstory of Vidura. All this is in the Mahabharata. 10. When Vidura was invited by his elder brother Dhritarashtra for consultation, he entered the house and gave instructions which were exactly to the point. His advice is well known, and instructions by Vidura are approved by expert members of the state. 11. Vidura said, "You must now return the legitimate share to Yudhishthira, who has no enemies, and who has been forbearing through untold sufferings due to your offenses. He is waiting with his younger brothers, among whom is the revengeful Bhima, breathing heavily like a snake. Surely you are afraid of him." They refer to Yudhishthira as the one, Sanskrit is Ajata Shatru, one whose enemy was never born. Means he has no enemy. But we see that he was treated as the enemy of Dhritarashtra over and over again. So what does it mean to have no enemy? It means he didn't consider anybody his enemy, even those who considered him their enemy. He was always very fair, very, very honest. He didn't take it personally that Dhritarashtra was behaving this way. And Vidura is requesting his brother, please, finally do the right thing. 12.
Such an example of I take no offense.
Yeah.
Did Vidura was not there for the battle. He was off.
Vidura was not there for the battle. He left on pilgrimage.
Yeah.
Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, has accepted the sons of Pritha as his kinsmen. That's Arjuna and his brothers, including Yudhishthira. And all the kings of the world are with Lord Sri Krishna. He is present in his home with all his family members, the kings and princes of the Yadu dynasty, who have conquered an unlimited number of rulers, and he is their lord. You are maintaining offense personified, Duryodhana, as your infallible son, but he is envious of Lord Krishna. And because you are thus maintaining a non-devotee of Krishna, you are devoid of all auspicious qualities. Relieve yourself of this ill fortune as soon as possible and do good to the whole family. From the purport, Duryodhana was exactly like blind, troubling eyes. He would be a source of great trouble to the family of Dhritarashtra, as foreseen by Vidura. Vidura therefore rightly advised his eldest brother to get rid of this source of trouble. Dhritarashtra was wrongly maintaining such personified offense, under the mistaken impression that Duryodhana was a good son, able to liberate his father. And Dhritarashtra's problem was that he was overly attached to his own exact bloodline. Although his nephews were there, he didn't consider them family and like his own sons. 14. While speaking thus, Vidura, whose personal character was esteemed by respectable persons, was insulted by your Duryodhana, who was swollen with anger, and whose lips were trembling. Duryodhana was in company with Karna, his younger brothers, and his maternal uncle Shakuni. Purport. It is said that giving good counsel to a foolish person causes the fool to become angry, just as feeding milk to a snake only increases its venomous poison. Saint Vidura was so honorable that his character was looked up to by all respectable persons, but Duryodhana was so foolish that he dared to insult Vidura. This was due to his bad association with Shakuni, his maternal uncle, as well as with his friend Karna, who always encouraged Duryodhana in his nefarious acts. 15. So now Duryodhana is speaking. Who asked him to come here, this son of a kept mistress? He is so crooked that he spies the interest of the enemy against those on whose support he has grown up. Toss him out of the palace immediately and leave him with only his breath. It's described in the purport that Vidura was the son of his father's union with a maid. And Duryodhana is using that as an insult. In ignorance of Vidura's character, he's taking a very materialistic view that you're the son of an insignificant woman. You know? You're a nobody. Just throw him out, leave him with only his breath. 16. Thus being pierced by arrows through his ears and afflicted to the core of his heart, Vidura placed his bow on the door and quit his brother's palace. He was not sorry, for he considered the acts of the external energy to be supreme. From the purport,
Can you say that again? He considered the acts of the external energy to be supreme.
yes, it'll explain in the purport.
External energy.
From the purport, a conditioned soul is absorbed in material existence under the influence of different modes of external energy. Absorbed in the false ego, they think that they are doing everything by themselves. The external energy of the Lord, the material nature, is fully under the control of the Supreme Lord, and the conditioned soul is fully under the grip of the external energy. Therefore, the conditioned soul is fully under the control of the law of the Lord, but due to illusion only, they think themselves independent in their activities. Duryodhana was acting under such influence of the external nature by which he would be vanquished at the ultimate end. He could not accept the sound advice of Vidura, but on the contrary, he insulted that great soul who was the well-wisher of this whole family. Vidura could understand this because he was a pure devotee of the Lord, in spite of being very strongly insulted by Duryodhana's words. Vidura could see that Duryodhana, under the influence of Maya, the external energy, was making progress on the path toward his own ruination. He therefore considered the acts of the external energy to be supreme. Yet, he also saw how the internal energy of the Lord helped him in that particular situation. A devotee is always in a renounced temperament because the worldly attractions can never satisfy them. Vidura was never attracted by the royal palace of his brother. He was always ready to leave the place and devote himself completely to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Now he got the opportunity by the grace of Duryodhana, and instead of being sorry at the strong words of insult, he thanked him from within because it gave him the chance to live alone in a holy place and fully engage in the devotional service of the Lord. The word gatavyataha, without being sorry, is significant here because Vidura was relieved from the tribulations which trouble every person entangled in material activities. He therefore thought that there was no need to defend his brother with his bow because his brother was meant for ruination. Thus he left the palace before Duryodhana could act. Maya, the supreme energy of the Lord, acted here both internally and externally. So for Duryodhana, who refused the good counsel, who had this external vision, who insulted Vidura, who kicked him out, who was essentially hell-bent. He was hell-bent, fully dedicated to his path. The external energy of the Lord is acting to, have him believe in his own ego, that he is able to get what he thinks he can get by pursuing this course. At the same time, by that same action of kicking Vidura out, Vidura saw it as, this is my Lord. This is Krishna coming to relieve me from this whole drama. As they say pejoratively, not my circus, not my clowns.
Yeah.
I don't need to deal with this. It's deeply unfortunate, and what he's saying hurts me so much, but it doesn't prevent me from my own service. I can leave. Those who are ready to hear from me have heard whatever I had to say. Those who aren't ready to hear, I can't convince them against their will, right? A man convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You can lead someone to wisdom, but you can't make him think. So Vidura was like, all right, I'm going on pilgrimage. Yes?
That's the one thing that comes up with reading the Mahabharata is like, these guys spent a lot of time being really patient.
Yeah.
Maybe too long, but I don't know. Like I can sense his relief. But why?
Yeah.
Why do you think? I mean, even when Draupadi came in and they're trying to rip the thing, that's when even Krishna talked about it later. And was like, they should have stood up.
Vidura was the only one that did.
Well, Vidura was the only one who expressed, concern about it. But there were so many that said nothing. What is the message? I mean, not to get too far off topic here, but it seems somewhat related.
According to our acharyas, great teachers in our line, the entire Mahabharata and all that drama, it exists to act as a motivation for Bhagavad Gita to be spoken, like a time, place, and opportunity for it, because it's the essential spiritual instructions. It's full of drama. There's warfare, chivalry, romance, intrigue. It's like everything all the great storytellers want, but it actually happened, and it's thousands of years old, and that's cool and interesting, and it attracts the ears and mind and eyes of any reader or hearer. And that's its purpose. It's entertaining. But it's meant to draw them into discussions about questions of Dharma, what is right and what is wrong, leading up to the Bhagavad Gita, which as Prabhupada just pointed out, the whole point of Bhagavad Gita is surrender and devotion to the Lord, which is the ultimate lesson for the human being. So, in effect, it had to lead to that, because that's the arrangement of the Lord's energy. So at times they were tolerant, at times they were too tolerant. What you said was right. There were times when they should have spoken up, and actually they were criticized for it by the Lord himself later. But all of it existed for that purpose, to have the lessons of Bhagavad Gita be imparted in the most dramatic way possible, because it's right before a battle that Arjuna is going to have to fight against his own family, which precipitates a complete internal breakdown for him. That wouldn't happen without that whole context. How could he go to war with his own brothers and cousins? And how could that happen? Well, all that backstory had to justify and lead up to it. So that's why,
Does a good
effectively.
job of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And like what you just said, Shami, that in that particular scene when Draupadi is being disrobed,
Right.
sorry, the lesson that I also saw, she then threw her hands up and showed the surrender.
Oh,
like she
Govinda.
called out for Govinda,
Right.
and then Krishna came and like in the thread, and she couldn't be, exposed, and so, but like but to have all of her husbands watch that.
Right. And also, as Krishna, I forget who pointed it out later, but Acharyas point out that that act was when there was no going back.
There was no going back.
There had to be war, because she was a devotee and she was a woman, and even if they're not a devotee, offending an innocent woman is one of the worst things you can do for your entire family. Karmically, the price is so high, and so to speak of a great devotee, it was like, that's it. It's got to happen now. There's got to be war. So there's a lot of drama, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of like, oh my God, this and that, like he did what, but.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah, you get to the Bhagavad Gita, and that's the whole point. So, yeah. Verse 17. By his piety, Vidura achieved the advantages of the pious Kauravas. After leaving Hastinapura, he took shelter of many places of pilgrimage, which are the Lord's lotus feet. With a desire to gain a high order of pious life, he traveled to holy places where thousands of transcendental forms of the Lord are situated. From the purport, Vidura considered himself less pious, and therefore he desired to travel to all the great places of pilgrimage in the world, in order to achieve greater piety and advance nearer to the Lord. At that time, Lord Krishna was personally present in the world, and Vidura could have at once approached him directly, but he did not do so, because he was not sufficiently freed from sin. One cannot be 100% devoted to the Lord unless and until they are completely free from all effects of sin. Vidura was conscious that by the association of the diplomatic Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, he had lost his piety and was therefore not fit to associate at once with the Lord.
Question. Could you define the context of sin here?
Sin effectively means anything that turns us away from the service of the Lord. Any distraction, any karmic bad effect, the bad association of his own brother is highlighted here.
But did he have a choice to not be in service of his brother? It kind of seemed in Mahabharata like he didn't have a choice, like he had to be.
Yeah, but still he's a humble soul. And as a humble soul, he feels that he's...
Okay.
You see, the act of going in pilgrimage is itself like part of the culture there. That's considered a very purifying activity. As Prabhupada's going to point out here, he says, places of pilgrimage are meant for eradicating the sins of the pilgrims. One should not be satisfied, however, by merely visiting the places of pilgrimage and performing one's prescribed duties. They should be eager to meet the great souls who are already there, engaged in the service of the Lord. In each and every place of pilgrimage, the Lord is present in his various transcendental forms. That refers to the deities. So he wanted to take shelter of the Lord's devotees and the Lord's deities. He had full faith and confidence in that. He had confidence that although he, as a humble devotee, he thought, I don't know if I'm really qualified to approach Krishna himself, his devotees will be merciful to me. They're even more merciful than he is. This is his mentality. He had full confidence in them. And so this activity of pilgrimage, which was a very approved activity in that culture, it still is. You can go on pilgrimage anytime you want. It's a God-given right. And he undertook it. It's like, that's it. I'm going to go. I'm dipping out of this whole material drama, and I'm going to go to the temples and where the devotees are, where they're chanting on the sacred rivers, and where Krishna has had his pastimes and so forth. It'll purify me. 18. He began to travel alone, thinking only of Krishna through various holy places like Ayodhya, Dvarka, and Mathura. He traveled where the grove, hill, orchard, river, and lake are all pure and sinless, and where the forms of the unlimited decorate the temples. Thus he performed the pilgrim's progress. 19. While so traversing the earth, he simply performed duties to please the Supreme Lord Hari. His occupation was pure and independent. He was constantly sanctified by taking his bath in holy places, although he was in the dress of a mendicant and had no hairdressing nor a bed on which to lie. Thus he was always unseen by his various relatives. From the purport, while traveling as a pilgrim, one should not be worried about pleasing society. There is no need to depend on social formalities or occupation or dress. One should remain always absorbed in the function of pleasing the Lord. Thus, sanctified by thought and action, one is able to realize the Supreme Lord by the process of a pilgrim's journey. 20. Thus, when he was in the land of Bhartavarsha, traveling to all the places of pilgrimage, he visited Prabhasa Kshetra. At that time, Maharaj Yudhishthira was the emperor and held the world under one military strength and one flag. 21. At the place of pilgrimage at Prabhas, it came to his knowledge that all his relatives had died due to violent passion, just as an entire forest burns due to fire produced by the friction of bamboos. After this he proceeded west where the river Saraswati flows. From the purport, both the Kauravas and the Yadavas were relatives of Vidura, and Vidura heard of their extinction due to fratricidal war. The comparison of the friction of forest bamboos to that of passionate human societies is appropriate. The whole world is compared to a forest. At any moment there may be a flare-up of fire in the forest due to friction. No one goes to the forest to set it on fire, but due only to friction between bamboos, fire takes place, and burns an entire forest. Similarly, in the greater forest of worldly transaction, the fire of war takes place, because of the violent passion of the conditioned souls illusioned by the external energy. Such a worldly fire can be extinguished only by the water of the mercy cloud of saints, just as a forest fire can be extinguished only by rains falling from a cloud. 22.
Beautiful analogy.
On the bank of the river Saraswati there were 11 places of pilgrimage, namely 1. Trita, 2. Ushana, 3. Manu, Prithu, Agni, Ashtata, Vayu, Sudasa, Go, Guha, and Shratadeva. Vidura visited all of them and duly performed rituals. There were also many other temples of various forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, established by great sages and demigods. These temples were marked with the chief emblems of the Lord, and they reminded one always of the original personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. So he's taking shelter of the places where Krishna had pastimes and also Krishna's forms as a deity. Like we see here Lord Chaitanya. This is an ancient and authorized anga or limb of bhakti, is deity worship. 24. Thereafter he passed through very wealthy provinces like Surat, Sauvira, and Matsya, and through western India known as Kurujangala. At last he reached the bank of the Yamuna, where he happened to meet Uddhava, the great devotee of Lord Krishna. 25. Then, due to his great love and feeling, Vidura embraced Uddhava, who was a constant companion of Lord Krishna, and formerly a great student of Brihaspati's. Vidura then asked him for news of the family of Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead.
Uddhava was who went to the. Is that who went to the gopis when Krishna was gone and he like pacified them? Is that Uddhava?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Try to place
He's
it.
very, very dear to Krishna. It's described, he looked very similar to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
At first they thought he was Krishna when he showed up. Then they saw he wasn't, but he's still very beautiful. And anyway, yes, he's a very, very intimate associate of the Lord.
And that was the story, the pastime where Radha is speaking to the bee with Uddhava's
Right.
presence. Okay.
Right. That painting right there, you can
Mhm.
see. That's Uddhava in the background, speaking to the other gopis. So, from the purport, Uddhava was a great scholar in logic, and he was known to be a son or disciple of Brihaspati, the greatly learned priest and spiritual master of the demigods. He was quite brilliant and a great devotee. Vidura asked Uddhava about the welfare of his relatives, although he already knew that they were no longer in the world. This inquiry appears to be very queer. But Srila Jiva Goswami states that the news was shocking to Vidura, who therefore inquired again due to great curiosity. Thus his inquiry was psychological and not practical. Right? Sometimes he knew the answer, but he wanted to hear it from somebody more wise than him. He wanted to process it. He was still in shock. He was grieving. He needed to talk it over. So, yeah, effectively, like we can say the takeaway is, one of them is that devotees, although they know they're not their body, and no one else is their material body either, they're still existing in the world. Even great devotees like Vidura can be appalled by sudden loss, and they may have to process that, and that's within the scope of even the great devotee's life. And one shouldn't try to be an automaton artificially. One shouldn't try and artificially, like mechanically, like life goes on. He knew he had to sort out some feelings around it, so he talked to Uddhava and let the subject come up organically, as if he didn't know. 26. Please tell me whether the original personalities of Godhead who incarnated themselves at the request of Brahma, who was born out of the lotus flower from the Lord, and who have increased the prosperity of the world by elevating everyone, are doing well in the house of Shurasena. 27. Please tell me whether the best friend of the Kurus, our brother-in-law Vasudeva, is doing well. He is very munificent. He is like a father to his sisters, and he is always pleasing to his wives. O Uddhava, please tell me, how is Pradyumna, the commander-in-chief of the Yadus, who was Cupid in a former life? Rukmini bore him as her son from Lord Krishna by the grace of Brahmanas whom she pleased. 29. O my friend, tell me whether Ugrasena, the king of the Sattvatas, Vrishnis, Bhojas, and Dasharas, is now doing well. He went far away from his kingdom, leaving aside all hopes of his royal throne, but Lord Krishna again installed him. O gentle one, does Samba fare well? He exactly resembles the son of the personality of Godhead. In a previous birth, he was born as Kartikeya in the womb of the wife of Lord Shiva, and now he has been born in the womb of Jambavati, the most enriched wife of Lord Krishna. These are all persons who are mentioned in the Krishna book, because they're sons and friends and associates of Krishna. O Uddhava, does Yuyudhana fare well? He learned the intricacies of the military art from Arjuna, and attained the transcendental destination, which is very difficult to reach even for great renouncers. 32. Please tell me whether Akrura, the son of Shwapalka, is doing well. He is a faultless soul surrendered unto the personality of Godhead. He once lost his mental equilibrium due to his ecstasy of transcendental love and fell down on the dust of a road which is marked with the footprints of Lord Krishna. Remember, he visited Krishna to take him back. He knew that he was ordered by Kamsa to take him back to Mathura for this wrestling match, which was rigged to try to kill Krishna and Balaram. But he was a great devotee and had faith that Krishna would somehow persevere, and he wanted to see him. So he took this journey to Vrindavan to see Krishna. When he got there, he was thinking about him the whole time. When he got there, he saw Krishna's footprints, and he fell down from his chariot in the dust, overwhelmed by ecstasy.
And that chapter in the Krishna book is what we read as we're
approaching Vrindavan. Yeah. It's traditional. Verse 33. As the Vedas are the reservoir of sacrificial purposes, so the daughter of King Devaka Bhoja conceived the Supreme Personality of Godhead in her womb, as did the mother of the demigods. Is she, Devaki, doing well? 34. May I inquire whether Aniruddha is doing well? He is the fulfiller of all the desires of the pure devotees and has been considered from yore to be the cause of the Rig Veda, the creator of the mind, and the fourth plenary expansion of Vishnu. O sober one, others such as Hridika, Chadudeshna, Gada, and the son of Satyabhama who accept Lord Sri Krishna as the soul of the self and thus follow his path without deviation, are they well? Also let me inquire whether Maharaj Yudhishthira is now maintaining the kingdom according to religious principles and with respect for the path of religion. Formerly Duryodhana was burning with envy because Yudhishthira was being protected by the arms of Krishna and Arjuna as if they were his own sons. So this is after the Battle of Kurukshetra. This is after Yudhishthira has been installed. This is after Vidura came and instructed Dhritarashtra and left again. Please tell me whether the unconquerable Bhima, who is like a cobra, has released his long-cherished anger upon the sinners. The field of battle could not tolerate even the wonderful playing of his club when he stepped on the path. 38. Please tell me whether Arjuna, whose bow bears the name Gandiva and who is always famous amongst the chariot warriors for vanquishing his enemies, is doing well. He once satisfied Lord Shiva by covering him with arrows when Shiva came as an unidentified false hunter. 39. Are the twin brothers who are protected by their brothers doing well? Just as the eye is always protected by the eyelid, they are protected by the sons of Pritha, who snatched back their rightful kingdom from the hands of their enemy Duryodhana. Just as Garuda snatched nectar from the mouth of Indra, the thunderbolt carrier. 40. Oh my lord, is Pritha still living? That's Kunti. Kunti. That's Arjuna and Yudhishthira and Bhima's mother. She lived only for the sake of her fatherless children. Otherwise, it was impossible for her to live without King Pandu, who was the greatest commander and who alone conquered the 4 directions simply with the help of his second bow. 41. O gentle one, I simply lament for him, Dhritarashtra, who rebelled against his brother after death. By him I was driven out of my own house, although I am his sincere well-wisher, because he accepted the line of action adopted by his own sons. From the purport, Vidura did not ask about the welfare of his elder brother because there was no chance of his well-being, only news of his gliding down to hell. Vidura was a sincere well-wisher for Dhritarashtra, and he had a thought about him in the corner of his heart. He lamented that Dhritarashtra could rebel against the sons of his dead brother Pandu, and that he could drive him, Vidura, out of his own house on the dictation of his crooked sons. In spite of these actions, Vidura never became the enemy of Dhritarashtra, but continued to be his well-wisher. And at the last stage of Dhritarashtra's life, it was Vidura only who proved to be his real friend. Such is the behavior of a Vaishnava like Vidura. He desires all good, even for his enemies. 42. I am not astonished at this, having traveled all over the world, without being seen by others. The activities of the personality of Godhead, which are like those of a man in this mortal world, are bewildering to others, but I know of his greatness, by his grace, and thus I am happy in all respects. From the purport, every living entity is factually completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord, but unless one is in the pure state of existence, they cannot be established in this position. This stage of dependence is called sattva sangshuddhi, or purification of one's existence. The result of such purification is exhibited in fearlessness. A devotee of the Lord who is called Narayana Para is never afraid of anything because they are always aware of the fact that the Lord protects them in all circumstances. With this conviction, Vidura traveled alone, and he was not seen or recognized by any friend or foe. Thus, he enjoyed freedom of life without obligation to the many duties of the world. 43. Despite his being the Lord and being always willing to relieve the distress of sufferers, he, Krishna, refrained from killing the Kurus, although they committed all sorts of sins, and although he saw other kings constantly agitating the earth by their strong military movements, carried out under the direction of 3 kinds of false pride. 44. The appearance of the Lord is manifested for the annihilation of the upstarts. His activities are transcendental and are enacted for the understanding of all persons. Otherwise, since the Lord is transcendental to all material modes, what purpose could he serve by coming to earth? 45. O my friend, please therefore chant the glories of the Lord, who is meant to be glorified in the places of pilgrimage. He is unborn, and yet he appears by his causeless mercy upon the surrendered rulers of all parts of the universe. Only for their interest did he appear in the family of his unalloyed devotees, the Yadus. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 3rd canto, 1st chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Questions by Vidura. Okay. Let's pause and take any reflections. If we have some more time, we can start chapter 2.
As I mentioned in text 43, there's like almost a little bit of an answer to your question about Mahabharata and the patience and why did it take so long and why didn't Krishna do anything. So that whole purport kind of
Cool.
talks to that. Yeah.
Yeah, that it was the will of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that he like wanted to wait and he let it go on for so long because he wanted all the miscreants to all be in the same place so that
Right.
battle could ensue. And that's why he came down as Krishna to protect the devotees and get rid of the demons, right?
Yeah.
So
beginning of the 10th canto, Brahma is approached by the Earth planet, who says that she's overburdened, weighed down by the burden of impious living entities who are making life difficult for her and all for the innocent persons on her surface. And Brahma, Bhumi, the Earth, and Brahma hears this and takes it to the Lord, who says, "I'm coming to relieve the burden, and I'm coming with my associates." So that's one of his purposes. And so, like lancing a boil, you want to get it all out. When you're treating a disease, you got to take the prescription for its full course. You don't just stop when you feel better. Take the whole thing. Otherwise, it could cause a resurgence. So Krishna had his plan. He was lancing the boil.
It's a good image. We can use more of that right now, I think.
I know.
Well, that's why he's incarnated as his name. That's why he's come as his name in this age. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself, and he's manifested, once again manifested. It's always been there, but re-centralized this process of chanting. That's the process. There's no need for a holy war. The war is the war against our own inner demons, and it's affected by chanting. So yeah, you're right. The world needs a lot of help, and the Bhagavatam and the holy name are what is absolutely the medicine, and that's crystal clear in all the Bhagavatam's teachings and the teachings of our acharyas under Lord Chaitanya. He's the physician, and he's prescribing the cure, and he's encouraging all of us to help give it to others as well. That's why we have these programs, chanting and hearing Bhagavatam and the holy name, because it actually does what we need for our hearts.
That's great.
Yeah.
Huh.
Otherwise, more drama. Unlimited,
It's really good.
as much as you like.
No more, please.
I
More
really liked how Vidura sort of paralleled Maharaj Pariksit in saying, "I know that now I need to leave, that I need to do
Yeah.
something else," and that he could have gone directly to Krishna and said, just transform me, but instead devotion takes effort, and so he went on these pilgrimages to really purify himself, so he was ready to really give himself complete surrender. Yeah.
Yes. And just like Parikshit, he had full confidence in the devotee of the Lord.
Mhm.
He took shelter of Shukadev, and Vidura took shelter of Uddhava, and soon he's going to take shelter of Maitreya for the same reasons. There's confidence. This is actually a symptom of an advancing devotee. It's described in the 11th canto that at the initial stages of devotion, one may have some sense of the Lord. Well, one will have some sense of the Lord, not may. They do. They have some feeling for him. But it's kind of a narrow vision. It's like me and the Lord, and honestly, everyone else can go to hell. It's like, that's the what's called kanishta. Like very, almost like, you see this with religious fanatics. They have no real context for their devotion. But as one advances, they can actually deal with living entities properly. Those who are devotees, they offer their friendship and service. Those who are innocent and could receive some upliftment, they try to help them as much as possible. Those who are averse, they give them their space. This is a sign of the maturation of an advancing devotee. Vidura had so much confidence in devotees, as did Maharaj Parikshit. And they also had the humility to not think that they could figure it out themselves. So that also explains why they're like with folded hands approaching devotees, like, please, you know Krishna, you're a real devotee, not like me, I'm a fake devotee. I don't have much devotion. You please instruct me. Although they're actually, on their own terms, quite advanced in devotion, but that's manifest in their trust that, yeah, these are dear to Krishna. These people are dear to Krishna. They can give me shelter. So it's a really nice parallel. Yes.
This chapter talked a lot about association, which I thought was really interesting. They talked about how fatal that association is with Dhritarashtra, his
Right.
brothers that like kind of fed off of each other and really stoked the fire of hate. And then he talks about, even Vidura, after being with this bad association, even though he's this completely, pure soul, he felt that he needed to go and cleanse himself from just being in this bad association so that he could, approach, Krishna with a true, with trueness. So I just thought that's, again, just putting an exclamation point on, being with devotees, and when you're in the world and you're not around devotees or people who have, God consciousness, how it really can, even the best, greatest devotees, it can tarnish it a little bit. And so how much
Yeah.
more we have to be careful about what we let in and, you know, how we protect our bhakti.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. It's like the more unclean you are, the more you don't realize how unclean you are. It's only when you're really clean that like a speck of dirt becomes noticeable, just in a physical sense. So it also applies to one's consciousness, which is the medium by which we can understand anything. And so an advancing devotee is very careful with their consciousness, what they put into their ears, what they put into their eyes, where they allow their senses to go, what they dwell on, and who they associate with, because we are like little sponges. We take up everything around us. We just like suck it all up, and for good or bad, or anything in between. And so Vidura felt that he had been contaminated by being around those materialistic inclinations and hearing and seeing what he had to see, even if he wasn't exactly guilty, because like as you pointed out, he kind of had to go with it. He was not in a position of power. He couldn't really say no, but still, he's just like, ugh, got to get clean, got to get my head straight, got to get right with Krishna. So yeah, nice noticing that theme there of association.
Well,
I also wonder whether he doubted himself because he couldn't stop his brother from doing something that was absolutely wrong. Whether we said maybe if I could have presented it better, and therefore I'll go learn to try to be able to save them in some way.
I don't think it comes up in Prabhupada's purports, although I didn't read every one of them. You can go back and check. We do know that he felt that at a certain point, the downfall of his brother was guaranteed fact, and nothing could stop that anymore. Whether he felt he could have done better is not clear, but we know he tried, which means that he thought that there was room to wiggle with this. He could have been changed. He thought he had some faith that, he had some hope. So whether that had any reflection on it, he took it personally, like maybe I could have been better, but I don't know. I don't remember reading that, but it could be the case. I would look into the commentaries of the Acharyas or Prabhupada and see if that comes up. Interesting point. You had a
No, I just thought it was interesting, kind of profound how Vidura. I mean, Krishna was in human form; he was manifest at the time.
right.
But rather than just go straight to him, like he had that sense that he wasn't clean. I don't know. That was pretty impactful. I thought, because it's like the thing you want, person is right there, but you have enough self-awareness to know that that's not the appropriate thing to do.
Yeah, that, and he also had, as I said, confidence that Krishna is available through. Like the first thing that we hear is that he went thinking about Krishna exclusively the whole time. So the point is to be Krishna conscious. The point is to be situated in that awareness of Krishna. And he felt that going on pilgrimage, seeing the deities, seeing the devotees, traveling, living simply, living outside of social circles, not existing in that world anymore, what was going to be most conducive for him to do that. Right? To see Krishna means to go and be in a palace with Krishna, and then he's Vidura, and then he has to play that role again, and who knows what that would have entailed. But he had full conviction because of his advanced standing and devotion that it doesn't depend on those things. It doesn't depend on Krishna being in front of me. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's in my heart. And he's in those places of pilgrimage. And he's in all those great devotees. If I can go there and get off the map and be unseen, maybe that's what's best for me. And so there's also some sense of like Krishna's system that he's also made himself available in his deities and everything too. So why don't I do that? Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because someone could think like, well, yeah, Krishna's right there.
Right? He's
You
such a
it's a valid
materialistic
question.
culture. It's like, no, he's there.
It's right there. Like, who needs these other people? Like
But then
Krishna's
you're
right.
you and he's him. And it's,
Yeah.
And like we can see Krishna through how Vidura did, like beyond
Right. Otherwise, it would be,
he's not
plumb out of luck.
Yeah. 'Cause he's
Sorry,
not here.
missed the boat. It's like he actually is completely accessible through his name, through the Bhagavatam. We're hearing about his devotees, to this association. The Bhagavatam and the Holy Name have been making people Krishna conscious forever, and the process continues. We're not doing anything different than Vidura did. We're taking shelter of the deity. We're taking shelter of devotees. It's the same process. So what worked for him and so many other devotees who weren't with Krishna. Many devotees couldn't even ever be with Krishna, actually, for circumstantial reasons. What worked for them works for us, thankfully.
It also seemed, though, that Krishna is paving the way for this too, because there was this one line where it says that not even a friend nor enemy recognized Vidur. So he could have this real experience of just being free from all this material association. He could just focus on a spiritual life.
Yeah, that's the benefit. It's kind of the privilege of going on pilgrimage. You are opting out. You're signing the opt-out form of the whole material thing. You're not voting, you're not paying taxes, you're not eligible for the draft. You're out. You're not making money. You're not spending money. You're just like living off of whatever comes to you, begging, traveling, and you are the property of Krishna, property of the Lord. You're in any intact spiritual culture will give the opportunity for someone to behave this way if they're qualified for it. Of course, what we see is that in this age, it's become corrupted by people just like kicking their feet up and being like, "Oh, cool! I'll just like live off of charity and do nothing," which spoils the whole thing. You're not actually like taking the thing seriously. But if somebody wants to go on pilgrimage and live as a mendicant, like a beggar, you can do that. And you don't exist. You're socially dead. It's like sannyas, yes.
Which is like so beautifully displayed by Radha Swami, right, in the journey home. Like he
did
lived
that. Yeah. And he met great teachers and took shelter of them. Yeah.
And then we have sort of our householder way of also going on pilgrimage, where we still are a part of society, and we still are paying taxes, and we are eligible for the draft and all the things, right? But we can take that time in our lives to go immerse ourselves.
It's really valuable because then you realize it's possible,
Right.
and what it can hold for you. Right? It's your God-given right. It's like everybody should have that opportunity. Just take it here and there. And even though most of us really do have to exist in the world, we're not qualified to live like Vidura for our entire life like that.
Right.
He was a very advanced soul. So yeah, but yes.
I was just going to say, I just really appreciated the whole flavor and energy. Well, the energy that you brought to class was really wonderful, and I could tell you're very excited and passionate about it. But also coming from, it just feels like a totally different energy than how the last canto ended.
Mm-hmm.
This is now, like I shared earlier, like there was some stuff that got really heady and kind of difficult for me to comprehend, whereas like this I get because it's all based in relationship.
Yeah.
You know, and connections between devotees and family and friends and foes and enemies, and it felt like going down memory lane. And we were talking about the Mahabharata right before class because you guys are reading it, and like, you know, and you said, oh, the third canto is going to start, like kind of pick up right where we take off. I was like, oh, really? Like I forgot, right? So yeah, it just felt like a going down spiritual memory lane. And I really just appreciated
it's a change of pace.
It's totally a change of pace, isn't it?
It's going to go back and forth.
Okay.
The first 5 chapters of this canto are a lot of that.
Okay.
Really just all that. And then there's a couple of chapters of more technical material creation stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be the majority of the rest of the canto is a variety of different pastimes with some pockets of material creation stuff. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
It's exciting. We have a lot to look forward to.
Looking forward to it.
Okay. We can pause here for now unless there's any more comments, questions. All right. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. So please comment in the WhatsApp group. Anything that stood out from what you heard, today, or what your readings were. Please read the first chapter, and then at least, then you can read ahead to chapters 2 and beyond. Chapter 2 is Uddhava's response. He's going to talk about, after having been asked all these questions, he's going to talk about Krishna. Especially Krishna in Vrindavan, This chapter is about, it's all remembrance. This is all Uddhava getting choked up, really, really in separation from Krishna, remembering him in Vrindavan and his beautiful pastimes. It's all just pastimes about Krishna. The third chapter is pastimes outside of Vrindavan. So why he's choked up is going to come into focus a little bit. But if you can, read ahead. And we'll see you on WhatsApp, and we'll see you next week. Jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All right, one chapter down.
Haribol.
Article. Thank you.
Hare. Thank you.